Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, October 15th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the NFL Power Rankings as we do every single Tuesday. In this segment, we're finishing off our show, getting into the NCAA Top 25 and, of course, our Group of 5 Top 5. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, October 15th. But like I was saying, getting into our NCAA Top 25, we're going to see if we can get our graphics back working here. Nope. All right. So we're going to go back to no graphics. Sorry, apologize about that. But the NCAA Top 25. It's a tough one this week. And we're going to start off in the Group of 5 Top 5. Andres' massive loss for Danny Dimes. Absolutely, they looked awful. The Giants offense did. But the defense looked great. So, it's not all bad in Giant land. But getting back to college football at number 5 in the Group of 5 Top 5. We do the top 5 Group of 5 teams every week as we track for the playoffs. At number 5, it's Washington State. They've been on this list for a while. Their only loss of the season is to a really good Boise State team. Washington State deserves to get a little more respect because if they run the table and Boise State falls a little bit, I could very easily see them in the college football playoff spot. At number 4, it's Navy. 6-0 is that service academy. We never see that. They have been dominating. They're in the top 25, in the AP top 25 for the first time since like the 40s. That is insane. And joining them is the other service academy member, our number 3, Army. First time they're both in 6-0. First time they are both in the NCAA top 25 since the 20s. That is crazy. That is not a normal thing. This is an awesome year. We could get potentially an Army-Navy game for the playoffs. That could be a lot of fun. Andre says Andrew Thomas out for the season. Giants are cooked. I had not seen that. That is not a good thing. Yeah, you're absolutely right. They are cooked if that is true. I just completely missed that. At number 2, on our Group of 5 Top 5, it's UNLV. UNLV has suffered one loss this season, and that is to Syracuse in overtime. They have played great football with Haj Malik Williams in the game. They have looked so much better than with Sluka. I am a big fan of this UNLV team. They are number 2 in the Group of 5 Top 5. And number 1 in the Group of 5 Top 5 is Boise State. Ashton Genty, your Heisman favorite. They continue to just dominate football games, rushing for 200 yards like it's nothing, rushing for 50-yard touchdowns like it's nothing. This is a crazy, crazy team. But getting into our actual NCAA top 25 here, at number 25, it's UNLV. We just talked about them. They were number 2 on our Group of 5 Top 5. Haj Malik Williams looks great. That team is putting up 50 points a game with him under center. That is a ridiculous stat. Whoever wins this week between UNLV and Boise State, as long as they are able to win out, should get that spot in the playoffs. But anything can happen. It's going to be an awesome game this week in the Group of 5, a must watch. At number 24, it's Pitt. They get a big win over a good Cal team. They are undefeated for the first time in forever. It's been almost 40 years since Pitt was this good at football. I think it was the 80s last time they were undefeated this long into the season. Pitt is a really good football team. They find ways to win. I was not sold on them, but they've beat a couple of good teams in a row that I thought they would lose to. Pitt gets on my ranking at number 24. At number 23, it's Syracuse, a team that I think is criminally underrated. They've lost one game. It was a last-second field goal to Stanford, who not the greatest team, but they're a good team. They've beaten a lot of really solid teams. Georgia Tech, they dominate. They took out NC State, that was respected at the beginning of the year, preseason ranked. I don't think they should have been, but still, preseason ranked. They've taken out UNLV. That is a very, very good football team. And Syracuse, and I think they're an actual threat in the ACC if Miami or Clemson slips up just a little bit later on. At 22, all three of those were not ranked last week. At number 2, we get our first team that was ranked in SMU. The Mustangs looked really good. They continue to look really good basically all season long outside of their first game. They got their footing in their transition up to a Power 4 school. They beat Louisville last week. They continue to look good. They are on a path to the ACC title as well. The ACC, don't look now, it's one of the more competitive. It might be just as, if not more competitive than the SEC this year. SMU up 3 spots to number 22. At 21, we have the USC Trojans. The Trojans put Penn State down to the wire. The number 4 ranked team in the country, I believe. I don't have the AP poll out there in front of me, but they take Penn State to overtime. This is a USC team that has its weaknesses. I'm not going to lie to you. It has its weaknesses. It absolutely does. But still, they just took one of the last undefeated Power 5, Power 4 teams in the country to overtime, and they barely lost that game. That was a great game for USC. If they can continue to play like that, they can beat just about anybody. At number 20, it's Oklahoma. They just got absolutely destroyed in the Red River rivalry, a game that is usually close. Not so this year. Oklahoma loses 34-3. That is not a good look for a very proud team, a very good defense, but going up against some contenders in the SEC, they've lost both of them. They are just about out of playoff contention. They're down 5 spots to number 20. At number 19, Indiana, the Hoosiers, undefeated 6-0. They get one of their biggest tests of the season coming up this week against Nebraska. This is going to be a huge test for Curt Cignetti and his team. I think this Indiana team is really good, and outside of a game against Ohio State, I think they could really win 11 games this season, which would be crazy. I cannot wait to see what happens with Indiana. Should be a lot of fun. They're a fun team to watch. At number 18, it's Missouri. Missouri bounced back after a brutal loss to Texas A&M, absolutely destroyed a not-so-good team in UMass, but still some solid things to see. They're able to bounce back. They're not going to wallow in their loss. I think Texas A&M is a very good football team. Missouri stays where they were after last week at number 18. They have a chance to climb or a chance to fall. They lose one more time, they're out. That is basically the same situation as our number 17 team in Ole Miss. They almost beat LSU in Death Valley in a night game. Got taken to overtime. They led every single second of the game, but they just got out-physicaled at the end. That's what happens. That's been their weakness basically every single year for the last 5 years. They can't handle the physicality. It hasn't changed this season, and that is what is going to get them into trouble when they try and compete with the big boys in the SEC. Ole Miss, I don't think quite has it this year. I was tricked again. It happens every year to somebody, to a lot of people. They are down 6 spots to number 17. At number 16, it's K-State. Kansas State up 5 spots after a huge win over Colorado. They got punched in the mouth, but they came back. They look like favorites in the Big 12 after Utah has taken a bit of a tumble. BYU is still there. Iowa State is still there, but Kansas State is looking like one of those big threats in the Big 12 that you should be watching out for. Their quarterback Avery Johnson, their quarterback just continues to get better. I really do like that defense, despite their ability to give up big plays, kind of being unmatched, but still. I think this is a really good Kansas State team. They just are a little tiny bit inconsistent, but they're getting better every single week, which is something that I like to see. Again, young college team. It's good to see improvement. At 15, it's Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a team that dominated Missouri. They did their job this week as well on a bye, getting better, probably, hopefully, but I want to see it one more time before I really vault them up. They destroyed Missouri, a fringe top 10 team that was winning close games against solid programs, but still, I need to see one more big win out of this team, one more big win out of Texas A&M before I move them up into the top 12, into the playoff bracket. At number 14, it's BYU. BYU 6-0, another one of those teams that hasn't been undefeated in forever. They look awesome. They really do. They're starting to run that Big 12. Their ability to force turnovers on defense is awesome. That's a huge part of the game. It's tough to rely on if you play against a team that won't turn the ball over. I don't think they win those games, but still, their ability to force turnovers has been a huge part of their game, and it's a skill, and they've been really, really good at it. At 13, it's Boise State. Ashton Jeanty, Heisman winner. We talked about him in our Group of 5 top 5 rankings. They have a huge game this week against UNLV that will basically determine the future of that Group of 5 slot. That is a huge game. Cannot wait to see it this year. At 12, it's Tennessee, a brutal loss, or a brutal almost loss for them. This week is going to be telling for Tennessee. Are they going to be able to beat Alabama at home? Are they going to be able to stay with Alabama at home? We need to see a big game out of Nico Iamvaleta, something he has not been able to do against really good competition yet. I think he can do it. I still believe in this team, but this is their test. This is their test against Alabama, an Alabama team that we'll get to later on, but has been limping a little bit. This is a must-win game for both of these programs, and it's a shame that one of them is going to get knocked out pretty far down because of this loss this week. At number 11, it's LSU. They get a come-from-behind victory against a good Ole Miss team. They came back. Garrett Nussmeier has that potential. He really showed it in this game, that potential to drop back, win football games. He can be relied on when you need him to be relied on. That was a great game by the LSU Tigers. The defense looked good. They're up to number 11. At number 10, it's Alabama. We just talked about it. They're limping into this game on the road against Tennessee. They almost lose to South Carolina. South Carolina picks them off in the end zone, then fumbles to give them that lead. It was not a good game for either of these teams. Then South Carolina has a chance. They score a touchdown, miss the 2-point conversion to tie. Then they get the onside kick. There were lots and lots of mistakes made by Alabama. That is not a good way to go, especially at home. They probably should have lost that game, but they didn't. I'm just not convinced by this Alabama team. After losing to Vandy last week, maybe they were just shook. They need to get right against Tennessee this week. At number 9, it's Notre Dame. Another dominant victory for them. They just continue to pile it up. While a lot of these top contenders continue to scramble, continue to not look good, Notre Dame just continues to win football games. They continue to look really, really good at football. Outside of that one game against NIU, they've looked really good. They're putting up a lot of points. That offense seems to have fixed itself. The run game is awesome, and as long as they can throw the ball, they can keep up with just about anybody. At number 8, it's Iowa State. I love this Iowa State team. That defense is locked down. That offense continues to improve, and they don't turn the ball over. That's a lot of very, very important things to do. That's about all you can ask for with a football team. Iowa State is my favorite in the Big 12. The Big 12's getting a little competitive. They're cannibalizing each other. This should be a lot of fun for the finish in the Big 12. At 7, it's Penn State. A lot of people have them higher, but I did not like what I saw this week against USC. I did not like what I saw earlier on in this season against a couple of teams. I need to see more out of Penn State before I push them back up into the top 3 like some people have them. This is a good Penn State team. No doubt in my mind. They're playoff bound as long as they can continue to play good football, but I'm concerned that they keep starting slow. Against a team like Ohio State, they're not going to be able to start slow and come back. Against a team like even in Indiana, maybe, they're not going to be able to start slow and come back. This is a good football team, but they need to stop with their slow starts. At number 6, Clemson. Domination, and then that game against Georgia. That one I'm pushing out of my mind. Georgia, very good football team. Clemson needs to show they can do it against good teams. They don't have too many opportunities. That'll come in the ACC title game against whoever they play, but probably Miami. But Clemson is on probably the best path to the playoffs right now. I really like where they are set up at. At number 5, it is Georgia. Georgia, again, domination. They just continue to win football games. They continue to not struggle. They haven't put together a masterclass yet, but the SEC is a mess with a capital M, E, and S. Georgia is playing probably the most consistent football out of all of them, and that is something to keep an eye on outside of Texas. Georgia's at number 5. At number 4, it's Miami. They got a much needed bye week. 2 straight weeks of near losses. They need to get that figured out if they want to continue to be contenders down the stretch here. I believe in this Miami team. I believe in that roster, but they cannot continue to play like they have the last 2 weeks if they want to continue to be this high in the rankings. At number 3, Ohio State. They fall 1 spot after a brutal loss to Oregon. Some bad clock management down the stretch. It's just tough. Some bad calls as well. That was a great game. I don't blame them. They were in Eugene, Oregon, to only lose by 1 point to Oregon on the road. That is a great game. All hats off to Ohio State. I didn't think they looked awful. I thought they looked really good. And I believe in this Ohio State team. In a neutral site game, I think they win. At home, I think they win, but they weren't. They were in Eugene, and they lost that game. I like this. I like what I saw in their biggest test of the season. At number 2, we have Oregon, the team that beat Ohio State. And coming into this week, I thought the winner of that game would be number 1. But we saw what we saw out of these teams. They looked really good. They both did. But they did not look as good as the number 1 team this week, and that was Texas. Texas dominant in every facet of the game. We talked about it when we did our winners and losers. They have the depth that no one else has. They can lose anybody and still be fine. I was so impressed by Texas this week. They are my number 1 team in college football. They continue to be. Oregon 2. Breaking down the top 10 real quick. Alabama, Notre Dame, Iowa State, Penn State, Clemson, Georgia, Miami, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, 11 LSU, and 12 Tennessee. Let me know what you think of my rankings. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Sorry about the technical difficulties today, but I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, October 15th. We will be back tomorrow talking all things baseball. The Subway Series is looking like it could happen in the World Series after the New York teams both won yesterday. This is going to be a huge, huge game of baseball today. We'll talk about basketball as well as the preseason is starting to wrap up, heat up a little bit. We'll talk about everything that comes out tomorrow and more. I'll see you then. You all have a good one. Bye-bye.